I'm resident of Collinwood, Jules Sage, joined by my buddy Gordon Dymowski, my buddy Patrick McCray. We're here to talk the Prisoner episode, The General. Really good. I like how they do the overhead shot and we have the helicopter coming in. Anytime I see a helicopter in an episode, you know it's going to be good. So, what are you guys' thoughts on The General? Gordon?
Oh, it's a great. It's really affordable auto insurance. So, wait, sorry, Prisoner episode. I like The General. It's one of my favorites. I think it's one of those that wears its 60s-ish feeling because it's all about how evil machines are. It's also interesting too because this is like maybe the only time somebody tries to use who's not number two tries to use number two to do their dirty work. Because there's the guy who's in administration who's trying to get them. I think it's also interesting too because this and the episode we talk about next, A, B, and C, this is the only other two-time number two besides Leo McCurn. And I couldn't figure out where, why they went with this guy. He's not bad. He's actually kind of like the paper pusher number two.
He is. He's very officious.
Mm-hmm.
Patrick?
For one thing, it's one of my favorite episodes of the original series. It's a Captain Kirk episode. Captain Kirk finds a culture that's been brainwashed by what turns out to they think is a god, and it's a supercomputer, and he blows it up with illogic. It's very it's very original series.
And it contains more European history and more trivia about European history than anyone really cares about.
Including the Europeans.
Yeah, because they don't do like. I mean, if I keep hearing an echo of my voice, but you would assume that in that at that time you'd want to do more recent history, but it's like Frederick of Augsburg, and when was this treaty? And it's like
being in high school.
Yeah, I mean it's so. I love how everything is just so rote, where it's very, very limited, and I like the fact that they introduced the professor's wife as someone who's like really into arts, or it just goes into like that whole kind of weird 1960s isn't this art scene goofy kind of vibe.
Because it was.
Yeah.
It was kind of goofy. But I see what you mean. This episode also has something, and this sort of picks up on a little bit of what we were talking about in the last one, I think, maybe. We have someone who's not English in a prominent part. And that's the host, who's American.
Mm-hmm.
The pitchman, the guy who's selling the general, with the mustache and the yeah.
Yeah, because you could tell that they kidnapped him from his used car lot.
They did. So why this guy? Why is the American here? What do you think?
Probably. I'm thinking probably because they were looking for someone to sell those used like little mini trams. Maybe he's like selling new Rovers.
It just had a nice sleek pitchman quality. It made it much more like a game show. I think, throw an American in there and it immediately looks like a carny routine.
Well, which it is, basically.
Yeah, it is. It's perfect.
And there's an interesting cameo. The scene where where number 6 walks in and there's the statues with the covers? One of them, and you have to look way in the back, one of them, I swear to God, is a bust of Leo McCurn.
I'm sure the art department had it around. From Times
of Big Ben.
Yeah. Yeah, which, you know, I'm sorry, but it's part of text. It's there. It's part of text. So, you know, you have two ways to approach it. One is to look at it from a strictly production point of view and go, oh, yeah, well, you know, they filmed this episode after that. But I choose not to race. I choose to look at it a little differently. I think this follows the events at Chimes at Big Bend.
Mm-hmm. That would make sense.
Yeah, this is the thing, if not one of the things that happens. I think this and Girl Who Was Death and A, B, and C definitely happen in between those episodes. Maybe even the assassination attempt episode. Which one was that?
That was It's Your Funeral.
It's Your Funeral. I think you can safely assume they happen afterwards, because with the exception really of A, B, and C, it's a very different number 6. I mean, what we've been seeing lately is spy mission-oriented number 6s rather than escape-oriented number 6s.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in terms of his mission. And I like that. I mean, I think probably because I've just spent so long with the McGowan 7, where everything is focused on number 6, it's kind of fun to see number 6 focus on something else. It shows its value.
Yeah. I think the reason the American is there, and it's something that we're gonna, I know maybe I'm giving the prisoner too much credit. It's something we're gonna see later. The prisoner by the end of the series is the prisoner. The prison is everywhere. It's all over the world. That's like the representation of London. So if you have London in the scene by the end of the series, if you at least have one American in your show, you can sort of hint that America is a prison as well, or a village or whatever.
Sure. Well, which makes me wonder, are there, you know, I mean, we've already concluded there are several villages. Are there villages that don't involve number 6 at all?
Yeah. Well,
you know,
I don't know if they did this or not, but I sort of look at like Escape from New York like a prisoner movie in a sense. It's except for Kurt Russell's going into the prison there's a wall, you know, New York, and but the government is sending him in, you know, which is really strange when you think about it. You could have take a what is it, the Alcatraz could be, or San Francisco itself could be a prison. You know, we don't know.
Well, I'm also thinking if you're going to do a village, you don't want to make it look too much like a prison. Like I could see that there's like some in America, there's some like small town out in Montana or Wyoming, you know, where there's, you know, you can't drive there, you can't, you know, you can only like airlift people in, where it's like 1950s Americana, but you know that like, you know, everyone's kind of talking as if they're from Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and there's not that, you know, it's like very, very bland and very, you know, kind of like St. Louis or Berwyn, Illinois, you know, just kind of places where there's no soul, it's just, you know, you're there, but you know that you're in a prison, even if nobody else will admit it.
Sure, you know, the roads all lead right back.
Mm-hmm.
You know, or they just disappear. You know, it's like Evil Dead. You know, it just leads to chasms. Yeah.
I was looking at pictures of Centralia, PA, where they covered up the road with dirt because everybody was graffitiing it, because look, the town's basically, it has 4 residents. So, but with the prisoner, with the general, I really like the opening scene. I like the fact that this is your first in this episode that there's a computer behind it all, that you have this supercomputer, because the ending is they're going to reveal this big computer with the green light. You sort of get that in this episode too. You get the green light when McGowan's character is watching the TV, being sort of hypnotized, and the information fed into him, which I like. What did you guys like about this episode? What was your favorite scene?
the philosophical ending. I think it's very Captain Kirk. It's a one of the reasons Patrick McGoohan didn't want a lot of romance on the show is that, outside of number 6 solving a lot of his problems by beating the shit out of someone, McGoohan kept saying, I want this to be good, wholesome family entertainment. And, although he had a weird point of view when it came to violence on that, it kind of was. And this is one of those moments where it's a really good talking point for kids to have with their parents. Well, what was it about that question that drove the computer crazy? I mean, that is a nice teachable moment, I think. But maybe I'm off on that. I really like that about it. And I like all the spy skullduggery down there. We finally see the white helmeted guards. This may be one of the first times that we see them. And we see that there is just this paramilitary, if not military, undertone to what's going on. I like that, again, the village, here he comes. Again, this is number 2. It never acts with children or dogs, and I'm dealing with both here, just in this animal. Lincoln, he's never like this.
He's putting his best side forward.
He's desperate to. He's desperate to. Well, it's not that kind of program, Lincoln. Okay, yeah. This is not a Nina Hartley instructional video. Google
that reference, kids. You'll learn something.
You literally will. She's a nurse. Mm-hmm. So I like the Nina Hartley instructional video part.
And although I too like the ending because it's very much the kind of moralistic 60s tone, I'm going to choose a different scene, which is the one where he's talking with the professor's wife, and he's saying, "What's he doing over there?" And it's someone standing on their head. Oh, they're gaining a new perspective. Because I think what this episode does is it leans into the anti-technology message, that computers are evil, people need to, sit and learn stuff and actually learn stuff. But I think it's also taking some pot shots at kind of the pretentiousness of artists. And I've worked with, I know a lot of artists, and I know a lot of well, for example, I know a lot of pulp writers, and what a lot of pulp writers will say is I always kill my darlings because Stephen King said you should kill your darlings, and so I kill my darlings, which I'm not into homicides. That's not my thing. But or they'll say, Elmore Leonard always says you should use said, so I'm going to use said, and I write so many words a day, no matter what. And you just want to go come down. Please come down from Mount Olympus, okay? Spend some time with us mortals, Come down from the cross, take the wood, build a bridge, get over yourself. It's that kind of high thinking where nothing wrong with art. I know some very, people who are in the artistic scene who are down to earth. It's all about craft. But I think that scene kind of pokes some little holes in kind of like the other side as well. I think it's a little weak, mostly because this was McGoohan's passion project. This is his vanity project, and there was so much of him in it. I don't think he could have. Maybe the writer was taking a pot shot at him. I don't think he would have seen that. I think this is a really. I also think it's interesting too that this number 2, and we'll probably see this. We'll see this a little bit more in A, B, and C. I think this is one of the more technologically minded number 2s. He's a paper pusher, and he's more like, hey, let's get this new printer in. He's like the or he'd be like the he'd be talking to the Darren Nesbitt number 2 from the Tribune saying, oh wow, we can remote control a bomb from a radio. We can use this. He's like that. He's pretty much he's pretty much like the, okay, yeah, paperwork. Yeah, I'll get to number 2 later. We can figure out why he resigned later, but let me do this paperwork. And he drinks a hell of a lot of milk. That
Yeah.
man has wonderful bones because he drinks milk.
He likes the milk.
I really like how it was that.
I agree. He's a milk drinker.
Mm-hmm.
I really like the fact that you have the beach scenes where he gets the little portable radio or the thing that the professor needs, and number two makes number six an offer, and the guy who's under number two, he goes, you should you should trust number two's deal. And it's just like, yeah, he's not going to do that. And number two, like, retracts it back after all because he doesn't, the professor doesn't need it anymore. I love the reveal of the general. I love the reveal of the machine. I think that is really neat. Like, even though, like, we all, the three of us know it's coming because we've seen the episode several times, but like when you're first watching, even if you know it's coming, it's still shocking to see a big machine in the back because you're thinking, okay, how are they learning this quick? Like, is it just somebody feeding the guy information and then they're somehow relaying it across the beam of light into their minds? No, it's a machine, and it's freaking genius.
It's good in the era of Chat GPT Uber alles.
Right.
I mean, I had very Chat GPT vibes as I was watching this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think too that the idea was that that the machine was basically just force feeding them information. I mean, the other thing that I was having vibes with is there have been studies done about using social media especially on mobile, like Facebook, Twitter, that they're designed in such a way that when you use them, when you get a status update or you like something, you get a little shot of dopamine. It's taking a little shot of cocaine. And I think this, at least for me, this is a little bit Chat GPT, but a little bit more like the reason why people are learning is that this machine is somehow kind of triggering those little positive flashes in their brain.
Yeah, I can see that very much so.
Yeah.
And that's, that again gets into the, homogenization, mechanization model of dealing with humans, which, Patrick McGowan saw coming down the pike, versus an authentic form where you have people actually talking about these ideas, these historical moments in terms of their context and what they would lead to and what that meant, and not just the physical life of teaching something, but the emotional life of teaching something, and one of the things that the general lacks as a technique, not as an episode, is this idea that your emotions have to be engaged as you're learning something, but not too much. And there's no emotion that's being engaged with the general. It's pure data that's just being force fed in.
And even when people are talking about it, there isn't that emotional like, hey, is this interesting? It's more of a, well, what happened here? This happened. What happened here? This happened. And the whole point of education, right. The whole point of education is to not just inform you, but to help you become a better human being, because you can talk about. And I mean, look how much we talk about Dark Shadows, and none of us ever said, that camera, when they cut from this camera to this camera to this camera. Usually it's more like, someone was on something when they were tweaking the vision mixers during the Cyrus Long Wars, John Yeager transformation scenes.
Yes.
And I think the general is as much about the emotion, and you learn something and learning helps you grow versus you learn something just for the sake of knowing it.
Of acquiring data. Yeah,
Right.
It's a lot more than just facts. It can't be just facts.
Well, that's the thing. Like, when you're in school and you're being taught by a person, you're being taught by a person in school. You're not being taught by a machine. So with one of my favorite memories of school was our history teacher. Okay, there are moments of facts, but there are moments of, okay, for example, the Booth conspirators. Do you really think John Wilkes Booth had conspirators? Do you really think they were guilty? That's something he asked us for our opinion of, and you either said yes or no. And why do you? Okay, why yes and why no? And then you had to answer. So I think that's one of my favorite things about actually when I was in school is, hey, you were asked your opinion. You weren't just, force-fed answers. It wasn't just, oh, here's the answer to this, and this. You actually had to learn something out of school. You actually had to do your own research. There was no internet. You had to look at a book. You had to go to the library.
Yeah, and even now we've and I speak as a guy with a master's degree in education. The way that we understand how people learn, at the time it was at the 60s it was you sat in front of someone, they lectured, you took notes, and maybe you had a conversation. Now what we understand is that people, the way they learn is actually interacting with material. It's actually working with different modes of learning. I'm taking an online course just for my own professional development, and it's the way it's broken down is like there's one segment that has, here's a video, here's the transcript if you want to see it, there's some readings, there's ways to discuss it. So you're it's not this beaming information directly into you. And I think even now, I think this is maybe one of the prisoner episodes that has a little bit, it might be outdated in terms of what it knows about education, but it's not outdated in terms of the message, because I think it's making a strong case for learning is useless unless you're willing to grapple with it. You're willing to engage with it and to work it through.
Bloom's taxonomy.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of it comes down to that. Humans have different learning styles, and you have to be able to engage with all of those for different kids in the same classroom. It's a tough job. It's just sort of, it's all about, this episode's all about education, so it's worthwhile to talk about. The problem I have with that style of learning, I forget what the term is, and it's weird because we use it at work all the time. It's something learning. It means multi-track or whatever. But what I don't think gets looked at is that there are also different teaching styles. And that various teachers will hew more to one type of student, one type of teaching or another. The weird thing is that the way I learned best was with Sage on the Stage. It was when I finally just got to take notes and listen to their thoughts and their analysis, and then I engaged in it in the essays, and the tests. But that made me really unusual. I mean, I was a very old school student that way. I was kind of a victim of newfangled learning because that didn't work for me. But it just depends. Again, it's all about the individual and how their brain operates.
Yeah. Very true. Is there anything you want to add about this episode, guys?
I think that says a lot of it. I'm looking forward to A, B, and C.
Yeah, because I think it'll be interesting, because I think these two episodes specifically, we see an arc with number 2, and I think they kind of, in a weird way, kind of comment on each other. I'm not going to go into details because all you watching out there, you'll need to watch next time, and then we'll talk about how they mesh. And if that bothers you, my suggestion is maybe go watch our conversation about It's Your Funeral first, because that's a fun episode, and then go watch It's Your Funeral because Darren Nesbitt is a joy, and then watch our conversation of A, B, and C, because then you'll just be in a good mood.
I agree.
So I was looking on Facebook, and a friend of mine, because 4th of July is after June, they were recommending Jaws. I have a recommendation for you both. Jaws 2 is very underrated. So there you
Let's look at it. That's what I got. I got to unpack.
Well, if I'm going to watch a shark movie, I'm going to go to Tubi and watch Cocaine Shark.
Cocaine Shark, exactly.
Well,
Gentlemen, I want.
Yeah.
You guys
Be
can wrap
seeing
up the details. Be seeing you.
They say Patrick.
Bye all.
Did you see Cocaine or not? You seen Cocaine Bear, right?
No, I haven't.
It's pretty good. Did you see the new Evil Dead movie, Gordon?
Not yet. It's on my to watch list for this weekend.
Pretty good. It's pretty good. Like, I'm gonna do a comparison of the 2013 movie and compare it to the movie today, because there's really interesting contrasting styles. I won't spoil it for you. But go give those a watch. They're both really good. I think you'll definitely enjoy Cocaine Bear, because as much as it was like sort of terrifying, I was somewhat laughing at it because it's just like crazy. Like, there's like horror comedy mixed in, you know what I mean? So, but I think my overall take for the general is, we've got into education, and with it overall, I'll say that what number 6 is trying to prove is, you can't just force information and then use a computer. You need to sort of figure out things for yourself as well. There's sort of that hidden message too, I feel, within this episode.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, because when you watch the very beginning of The Prisoner, every episode, what do you want? Information. Information. And I think it's kind of an interesting meta commentary on kind of the premise of The Prisoner, because we don't know what number 6 knows, but you would just think, well, why not just tell them? And I think much of the intrigue of the show is like, he knows something so bad that he can't say it out loud, or even if it's, why did you resign? I think the closest we come is a matter of conscience. He could just easily say, because I wanted to back off. But I think there's something. I think the general is one of those. I think because it's talking about just beaming straight information and just delivering without that kind of critical piece of, what am I learning? Because a lot of the stuff they're talking about is like 16th, 17th, 18th century Europe. It has nothing to do with England. And you could argue that the reason why is probably they don't want, the village does not want too much critical thinking. And I think the fact that the village is testing this, they're not testing it as an education piece. I think they're seeing it as, that old 60s bugaboo, mind control. You know what I mean? Because it's just, like, I'm sure that the village would, like, with you, they'd probably try to convince you that, like, the Halloween series in total is a total failure. You should avoid those movies like the plague. And they would do that because if people who run the village are jerks. And I'm cleaning it up for you because I know you don't mind profanity, but I don't want YouTube to come back at you because of my potty mouth.
Right. No, I appreciate that. I think too, with the general, I think it's number 14 who asked number 6, why did it happen? Why did a historical event happen? And he starts answering the year, and he's like, no, that's not what I asked you. And he's trying to show him like what the fault is and what they're doing. And that, I really like it. It's something, for those who haven't seen this episode, go watch it. Go watch The Prisoner. It's quick, but you can catch it, and it's really good. It's a really good scene. Because it's just well acted, again, by Patrick McGowan and number 14. Really good job.
Yeah. And I wonder if number 14, because it's basically the plot is number 14 is trying to get number 6 to, do something. Yeah. I kind of wonder, and this is more fan fiction than anything else, I wonder if number 14 decided once he got there, I'll be part of administration because I can kind of destroy this from the inside.
Yeah, I think he's not a plant for whoever's running the village. He's a plant for somebody else.
Right.
But I get the sense too that number 14 is a plant who's sort of a standalone plant. He's not, like, they've sort of, whoever put him in the village forgot about him, or whatever he's assigned to or was assigned from. he's been forgotten about, and he knows it. And he's like, you know what? I'm going to destroy this shit.
Yeah, they pretty much just his superiors are pretty much determined. Yeah, he's expendable. We can let him go. You know, oh, oops, I put his file in the shredder.
It's a formula that works for movies as well. Look at Predator. God. But again, right? They throw him away. You know what? He's not important anymore. He's expendable. He doesn't have a family. He doesn't have this. He doesn't matter. And really, I mean, that's sort of number 6's story too, because everybody is sort of like, well, the episode we covered prior to like a couple episodes ago, where they body swap, and he's telling, he's trying to tell everybody that it's him. Like, no, you could have just got that information out of, all these other methods.
Yeah, and I think too, it's the idea, and I think like this and A, B, and C, I think really touch on a really key theme, and I'm not sure how simple I can put it, but I think it's all about if the prisoner is about, hey, I am an individual, I have a right to be an individual. I think this and A, B, and C are all about, you know what, you don't get access to what's in here. You do not need to know what's in here. Mm-hmm. Intellectual privacy is the ultimate right, for lack of a better term. That in this one, it's people putting things into his brain. And number 6 realizes, when he's asked, well, why did it happen? Oh, like he didn't even see it. I think before he would have just seen it as, okay, yeah, it's that it would have been like, if you were like a teenager in the late 80s and people are like, hey, let's watch MTV Spring Break. It's like, no, that's not his thing. You do that, but I don't think it mattered to him when his kind of intellectual integrity, and when it's like, hey, they're beaming stuff into our brains and we can't answer why, then it's like, okay, yeah, this is a definite menace. And I think the fact that he chooses to, he goes along with number 14, but then at the end, he's the one who manages to sabotage it, because by asking by asking why, when the professor's all, okay, I've got this next load of classes to just crank out. But I think this theme of rigorous intellectual, it's like your mind is your own. Yeah. Basically, I think that's the thing. And I think it's interesting that such a really, and in the 60s, like mind control was the thing, it was either, and usually like in the trope would usually be, I'm going to take over the world. And there's usually like the villain might have someone he wanted to, usually a woman who wanted to be with, and he'd say, you know what, I'm going to control everyone in the world, but not her, because she's got to fall in love with me willingly. Like controlling the world is going to make a woman go, or anyone go, yeah, that's a person I want to be involved with. That guy's a definite positive life partner. Being with that person is a positive life decision. No, but I do think he's taking that vibe and really leaning into it. He didn't write this episode, but you can see where the writer is really leaning into the idea of, it's not just indoctrination, it's you get the right, you have the right to your own brain, your own thoughts. The next episode will A, B, and C will kind of look at it from the other side, and that's all I'm going to say.
Right. I forget what the movie was called that I watched. It was a couple years ago, and I didn't catch all of it. I caught like the tail end of it, where there was this dad, and there was this mad scientist or something. I don't know what he was exactly, but he had taken the guy's son and did some sort of hypnosis or something with him, and had him kill the guy's like wife, which was his mother, his sister, and like weird stuff. It was from the 60s because it looked old, like it was. I could tell how old it was, and then he said, "Now kill your father." Well, here's the thing: he turned on his own creator because to him, the guy who hypnotized him, was like his dad. Which was like I didn't see that coming, but you know what I mean. Because again, I didn't watch the whole movie. I'm
trying to remember. I don't remember a movie with that premise, but it could be that I've seen it and my mind just went.
Yeah, again, I didn't catch the name of it, and I only caught the tail end of it, so I didn't see the beginning or middle of it.
Mm-hmm.
It was a real weird movie, and then we're talking about this episode. It made me think of that movie a bit. So yeah, really good episode. Go give it a check out. Gordon, I will see you and Patrick tomorrow night. You guys, Patrick, so Gordon, you have a safe night, buddy.
You too. We'll talk to you later. See you tomorrow.
Yeah, see you tomorrow. Bye.
Bye.